Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm here with Margaret Tellini, our CTO and founder. And today we're going to have part two of the presentation we gave last week. So if you missed that one, it was just an introduction into vector drawing, how you can use it in the industrial space, obviously with some tools around our software, but even beyond that, what are some best practices and some of the graphical tools you can use when you think about vector drawing. Today, we're going to dive a little bit deeper, going through more of those properties for when you're thinking about vector drawing, and also some of our specific tools. Just an intro, I've mentioned before, and just kind of make it clear, December is going to have a bunch of little sessions around the graphical space. So this is the second one, but we still have a couple more in line for this year. So thank you everyone for being here. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please do so. And if you want to leave a like, that also would be great. If you have any suggestions for topics or anything, we're always online at our Discord channel. I will drop the link in the comments. And I think that's it for now. So Mark, let's go.
Okay, the tool I'm using is the FrameworX. You can download it free from our websites. And there are two main types of display, canvas and dashboards. And we are now talk about the canvas, which allows us to do the vector drawing, as we discussed on the previous meeting. And some basic review on what you did discuss on the previous meetings is that we have the basic shapes, the polylines, the open and the closed polylines. Each mouse click is one dot. You right click to finish. And when you have polylines, you can resize, reshape, or you can use the direct selection tool, which will pick up each dot of the polyline, so you can modify one by one, or double click or right click to add or remove dots. And we also did cover the concept that the polylines, when you double click, you see the properties, you have which exactly coordinates are that polyline. You can edit each one here if you want to. And also we introduced the concept of path, which is a combination of two elements. So when you have two basic shapes, those elements, when selected, no parallels updates now. You can do some base combination of shapes to create a new vector element. You can do a union, or you can do the intersection, and or you can do an exclude operation or exclusive OR. And whatever operation you do, you are creating a new vector element. When you have those elements that are more complex, you are calling a shape or a shape path. And the representation for a shape path that's used in vector drawing is called a path or a shape path. And the reason it's called a path is there is a special syntax with those letters that say start at this point, do a line here, do a Bezier curve here. So if you go to shapes, all those predefined examples, they are also shapes using that syntax. And that syntax very easy also if you ask to ChatGPT to create a path or to create a SVG file. Internally, what is a SVG file is just this combination of paths.
And I will
And
highlight that. Just like what are those numbers for? You can actually use AI to build those for you. So that's why we leave it open, because then if you do have those numbers, that's easier than just drawing by hand.
yes, it's very uncommon for you to have to add that. And what's common for you to do is also to import an image. And you saw last week that the image can be this one like a bitmap, or you can port vector graphics also. But the agenda today is to go further and explain that when you combine those two shapes, instead of creating a new shape, you can combine in what you call a group. And when you create a group, they still have their identity. So when you ungroup, you still have the basic elements that created that group. So if I have this group and I modify the size of the group, when you ungroup, you can define, should I restore the original position, or should I ungroup keeping the current position? So if you ungroup like that, you have the position kept. Sometimes when I'm doing some advanced drawing, a common practice sometimes is to draw something at very large scale, then group it all, and your application, sometimes you're using that really a very small size.
Yeah.
And when you do that, if you want to modify that, that's why we have that option to ungroup, restoring the original size. So in this case, you ungroup, and we have the bigger version of your vector graphics, so you can work more easily with that elements. When you have also a difference between a group and a new path, is that when you select a new path, as you see, you are selecting the entire elements. So if you change the fill color, you are changing the fill of the entire elements. If you have a group with the direct selection cursor, you can select only one part of that element without having to ungroup. And it's definitely very useful to apply dynamic properties. And the basic two elements that you have in an element, and I'll pick up one very simple to explain, just a rectangle. The two basic props that you have are the fill and the line. And you can enable and disable those properties. Typically, you should avoid doing that because here we still have an element, but completely hidden.
Yeah.
It's possible in some cases, maybe even useful, but very uncommon. So here you can turn on and off the line. And the fill and the line, they have different behaviors. Both can be a color, a play color, and we have this extra that you can define the RGB, you can pick up visually, you can create gradients, you can pick up through the color names, a nice editor. And we'll talk later about themes. But what's important about the fill, that it can be an image. And to do that explanation, I will pick up these other objects. So in this, and you see by default the last fill is selected. So in this case, you see the field can be an image, and that image can be any SVG or bitmap file that was previously imported to the application. And when you bring those images to the system, they will act as the color for the shape. So you see the elements will be constrained by the shape, and you'll be acting as the feeling of the shape. And when you have, let's put again a basic view without the gradients to be simple. And what about the line? The line also have some special properties. It cannot be an image because it will not be really makes much sense, but it has their own properties that you call the stroke. That's the name for that. And the stroke, the main definitions you can do is the thickness of the stroke, or also you can define what kind of dash pattern it's using. And that dash pattern, as you see, can be complex. And the sequence of numbers explain how is the pattern that will be used between spaces and lines in the elements. Most of the time, if you use that feature, it's likely to be something more simple like that. Okay. Good. And what else about those basic elements? And also you can define when you have that intersection, how they will be. It's called the joints. You can put a little nice.
There's a lot of little specific ones, but I feel like in general, that's important to know. I know it sounds simple, but that is kind of the base of anything regarding color to your elements, the stroke.
Exactly. And by the way, these elements that I pick up to show is a rectangle that can have a round border, a radius, but that's just regard the shape of the elements.
Perfect.
Okay. Good. Now that we have the basic shapes, we can start to combine them. And when you start combining elements, sometimes it's useful to have an opacity. And about opacity, I'd like to explain one concept. If I put these objects to the top, so I can select that object, use this alignment tool, move to the top. By the way, you can know which element is on the top because we have this magic number here that is Z order. In a canvas, all elements, they are in one specific order. You can know that through that number, or you can also open the tree view of the page. And when you are looking in the tree view, you have that. What's nice about the tree view, remember that I did show that I create this group of elements. Mm-hmm. So here this is highlight the entire area of the group and each part of the group.
Awesome.
So that's another way to select your elements and find about the Z order. But in this case that I put here on the top, you see I can still see what's behind. Even I don't have any opacity. Opacity is a property that make any object to be partially transparent. So if I pick up this image and add opacity of 50% or 10%, you see the effects. In this case, this object has no opacity, even so it's acting as if it has. That's the reason is the color that was selected for this object has the alpha. So give them the base definition of those elements more formal, Isabella.
The transparency of it.
Yeah,
Oh, the
that's
alpha,
called.
blue, green. No, that is just the color definition. Well, I won't have its exact definition for you, but you can play around and you can see that it increases the number of colors that you want. So if you want more blue into your color, or green, the alpha is really just black and white at the end of the day. So
Exactly. So the red, green, blue puts any color can be defined at what we call the RGB standard.
um,
And the alpha is the first number here that will define that transparency of the color. Okay. Good. So in this case, the color itself has some opacity. That's why it works in that way. Okay.
perfect.
If we go back to here, alpha, the full number, that's typically how we use the colors in more basic drawing.
Perfect.
Okay, now that we have all those combined elements, should we talk a little bit about dynamics?
Yes, we went through it very quickly last time, but I would like to dive into a little bit,
Yeah.
diving into a little bit more. So
When you are doing those elements, they will not be exactly static. You want to be able to put a dynamic behavior if you talk about human-machine interface or process control. So let's start very simple. Let's pick up this object here, okay? And I'll make this object to have a bigger thickness. And I want this object to be a signal to the operator and something's happening. So how you can do that? All those properties that we modify statically, you can also modify dynamically here. So I can pick up, for instance, a few color of the objects and apply some levels that can be variables, by the way. That's when you are in that number, we have a new color for the objects. So what I will do here, to be simple, I keep only one level. That when my process variable is with value 1 or greater than 1, I'll put the red color. And my expression will be a process variable from my factory or my production plants. In this case, instead of using a real system, we have a bunch of simulation variables in the system that I put in the simulation digital, just a variable changing between 0 and 1. So now this object has a dynamic behavior that I can have the preview on what happens when I run the application. That's the behavior that will happen when the application is running.
perfect.
In the same way, I will not go giving one example to each one, but you can modify the external stroke, that's the line color. You can put a bar up and down inside that object, and that's for a training section. Today is not exactly training, so I'm not going all those properties.
The only one I will highlight is visibility, because that is the opacity that we talked about. You can hide and show
Yes,
objects.
visibility is an important one because you can define a tag here to control that opacity. So as this variable change from 0 to 100 or to whatever number, the opacity will change 0.5. to one. One means not opaque.
Yeah.
And the visibility is important because you can also put an expression. Let's say based on the username or based on the securities. You may want to hide these objects if the current user does not have authorization to do some action. Or you can also just put by default some opacity if the security is not enabled. So the visibility you can do by brute force, but also in a HMI application, you can tie the opacity automatically or the visibility with the security of that object, if it's a button or something like that.
That's perfect.
And talk about button, I think it's a good point to introduce that I was talking about creating some vector graphics, but when you're doing your display, we have a bunch of predefined elements. Those are, if you go on interaction, we have those many traditional Windows controls like
Do
a
you want
button.
to clean the screen and we can show them a little bit bigger? I think that's
Yes, that's a very good idea. Oops. Let me delete them all. Okay.
perfect.
And by the way, to show bigger, one thing that you can do is to control here the zoom size that you are working on the display.
Yeah, you don't have to increase the element itself.
Yeah, so here I'm increasing the entire area, or I can fit my entire drawing area to the size I have. This area here, we have those usual set of controls for the zoom, and also I did mention that you can define the size of the temp, you can put the grid lines or the rulers. There is a bunch of additional controls you can use through here to your drawing. So those elements, they have a predefined behavior like a checkbox or a combo box. So of course, we're going to use those also on your UI. So those are all a set of predefined elements. And you can have some elements that are more complex, like bar charts, pie charts, or you can have an element to input the date time. So all those elements in general, they are calling controls. So element is the name we talk about. Anything in a display is an element. A rectangle is an element. A control is an element. Then, more specifically, we call controls those elements that have some additional behavior connected with the elements. So on the configuration, additionally to the color, you can define the properties that are specific to that control. One type of control that's very basic to explain are the text control. And the text control, typically, we are going to use two types. We're going to use what they call a text block. That's a part of text that's with no backgrounds. And another very common is the label that has by default a background. And another type that's very common is the text box that by default has a label and an input field. And to the text elements, of course, then can be dynamic, the contents, but you have some additional properties that are the fonts. And connect to the fonts, you have the font size and many other properties, the color of the text that I'll not go into much detail, and also the ability to localize. It means run this application in another language. Before go to industrial icons, anything here, Isabella?
No, I think that's good. Like Mark said, we had a good variety of different controls, so pretty much for anything you need. I will note that most of them are will work on both HTML5 and WPF. But if there's any that are specific, they will say so.
Perfect. And one thing that we did with fonts, we create a custom font that when you're using, you don't even realize that's based in fonts.
Yeah.
But this is a special font called industrial icons. And the beauty of those industrial icons is because behind the scenes, they are based on a font. They are very, very light to the displays and very, very easy to customize the colors. So when you're doing navigation, that is a very useful reason to use those industrial icons, because there are many typical representations that we need to do in the navigation, like I need to go back to the home page, or I need to define the user security, or I need to go to an info page. So I need to go to my alarm page. I need to enable web or Wi-Fi. So when you think about icons for navigation, that's your to-go place that are the industrial icons. And talk about fonts. Most of the displays, it's nice to have a light background and your text in black. But if you have been in a factory, the night shift working 8 hours a day with a very bright screen is not really ideal.
Yeah.
So we have that concept of themes. So you may want to do your user interface here on appearance. Instead of a light background, you can have many shades of lights, or you can go dark, meaning the background of the display is dark and the fonts are white. How it's possible? I was doing that drawing, not even think about that. But automatically here I can select the preview. And not only preview, of course, when I'm running the solution, I can change colors also. The same way, this drawing tool, you can also change the appearance of the configuration environments. You can also do that for the applications you are creating. So here I'm changing the appearance of my environments, my configuration, my engineering environments. I can also select how will be the appearance for the operators. Here we are simulating how would be this display with the many predefined themes that we have more than 10 able to customize also. And the trick to do that is that when you define a color, you can define a color that is hard-coded. If you go to that RGB dialog that we saw before, or you can pick up a theme color. A theme color has the concept that more important the color itself is the description. And the description here is called text foreground. It means that based on the color selected, the system will automatically pick up what's good to be a text foreground. The same way this icon, the color defined to this icon is accent brush. It will be a brush that give an accent, give a good contrast to whatever is behind. So when we are putting objects on the display, by default, we are not applying specific colors, but we are picking up colors using the themes. And when doing your vector graphics from scratch, you can do that also. So this object that I am defining, I can select the fill color instead of being a custom color, will be a theme color. And we'll not go in deep detail on themes now. So stay at the base concepts. A theme color is some standard colors to things like a title or a legend, a bar, an accent, a selection button, or can be a standard defined high performance HMI is a standard in the industry that they put the definition of some colors for alarm situations and elements. Or you can having custom colors that by default we create a good set of colors to state on, state red, item selected. But those names and those colors you can customize to specific applications. A typical example, if doing water applications, you have one color for water and another color for wastewater, for waste. For doing waste and water applications, you typically want to have those two colors in your displays. And the foreground of the color, when you change the theme, all those colors that are on the theme, when you are run the display in another path, if I go to the definition of this color, you'll see I'm still looking the same color. I'm looking the text foregrounds, but the text foregrounds to this type of display, to this background, the system automatically finds out that this is the best one to show.
Perfect.
Good. I think we are good on that.
I think
What
so.
else,
Like,
Isabella?
I will say, like, for the themes, we obviously encourage you guys to use the completely custom colors if you want, but give it a shot. Give it a try with the team's colors, because those ensure that you're going to have good results visually.
At minimum, with the two base that are the dark and
Yeah.
yeah, because we do have a very large setting. If you go to use preference, you see we have 6 colors for dark, light backgrounds. We have 6 colors for dark. We have 2 high contrast colors. And when you are using the configuration environments, it's very easy to do that. When you create an application for production, frankly, it's probably an overkill to allow the operator to select one of 14 color schemas.
Yeah.
But that said, we strongly recommend you to take a look if your applications is working properly with a light and a dark backgrounds.
Yeah, I think that's key.
Because that allows your operator based on the shift. At minimum, nowadays, I believe a professional application would be very recommended to have at minimum a dark and a light option.
Agreed.
And another option that I'd like to highlight, it's very common use. In some cases, you have so many drawing images that you don't want to ensure your application will run nicely in both teams. You want to have only one. In that case, very common to use this team that called Platinum or Steel, because the difference of the Platinum and the Steel, when you compare with a light background, you see the tone of the elements, they're not so bright. So even you don't have a dark background, but you are using those other two themes all times, it will be a little more comfortable for a long time using the display. If you draw your displays, let's see here the example. Let's make this object smaller. instead of the light backgrounds that sometimes would be too bright. One alternative, if you are going to use only one theme, is to put the background of the displays here at the platinum, or if you want even dark, the steel. Okay.
You chose both.
Oops. Yeah.
Up.
Up. Yes. So this one or the platinum, especially platinum, I say it's very, very common for HMI design to be the background of the displays.
Perfect.
I think that's enough information for one session.
Yeah, I was gonna say, guys, if you have any questions, leave it on chat. The only thing I will ask, like, if you want to verify minor, just intro into symbols, because we're gonna have a full session about that.
That's true.
But I think it's worth just mentioning since we're talking about all the controls.
Exactly. When you're talking about those all those controls, we did talk that we have many. They do have a predefined behavior, like those bar graph, those elements. You just put them on the display, and you can customize the properties if you have the scale, if you don't have the scale. But the basic shape of the elements is defined.
Mhm.
So all those elements, all those controls, they have many properties to customize, but they are essentially a basic definition. What we have also is the ability to customize your own elements using vector graphics. By the way, the entire explanation about vector graphics was a preparation talk about symbols. Because when using symbols, you can customize the basic properties of the symbol. Like here, I can put a property going to be on or off. But the symbols, unlike the controls, they are created using vector graphics in an open way. It means you can edit or break, and you'll be able to do the low-level editing of the entire appearance of that symbol. So the symbols, they are constructed using the drawing primitives and the dynamic properties to act as a control. They have a behavior, they have some dynamic properties, but you have full ability to customize any of the 2000 symbols that we have, or create your own using that vector and dynamic concepts you learned the last two sessions.
That's perfect, and we'll leave that as just an introduction. We're gonna have a session just on symbols, like I mentioned before. December, we're doing a few sessions around the graphical space, so that session's still coming. So yeah, I'd like to thank you, Mark. I think we're good for today. I think that's enough. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please do so. If you like the video, leave a like. And we're always open to suggestions. If you want to leave something on Discord, on any of our socials, go ahead. I will use this time also to promote. We're going to have a special Technical Tuesday next year around the ML.net and other AI tools that our software supports. It's going to be a bit of a longer one, a bit more technical. I look forward to seeing you guys there. You can look at our website. You can look at our LinkedIn, especially. You have the event created there, and you can register that at no cost, obviously. So yeah, keep an eye out for our socials for the next sessions that we're going to have on this year still. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Mark, thank you for being here.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Appreciate it.